Hi everyone, today's episode of Chewing the Channel is with the legend that is Ben Ganley, MD and owner of LIV Unified Communications. We're going to be touching on his journey into running the fast growing business, but also the unique parts of having an engineer first business in the telecom sector, their focuses and little view of the future. Welcome, Ben. So really pleased you could make the podcast today. So MD, LIV Unified Communications, full title. I'm doing some research, which is rare for me through these podcasts, but your journey is quite interesting because I was thinking about this on the way in. So we had Adam Wilson from IP Exchange. He runs a business in Manchester, and he started his business as a salesperson into the business and then kind of grew it that way. Your journey's quite different in terms of there's a real engineering focus with your business, and the sales is, I'm interested how that came about into the business, how you started your business, but it's quite an interesting move into a UC business as opposed to I'm a salesperson, I'm going to make loads of money, I'm going to grow it, and you're coming at it, I'm assuming, from a different background,
definitely,
with the technical side of things. And I imagine it's going to be interesting to touch on how you've had to evolve as engineer, business owner, into the sales bit, into HR, all those different areas over the time. So 8 years ago, was it right? About 8 years ago, you started the business, roughly nine years.
Yeah.
So I was a desk-based account manager at Virgin when you went it alone. So what prompted you to kind of, what was your journey up to the point of getting to the age where you thought, I want to start a business?
I think it was early. I think, definitely. I just had this ambition in my head that I think I was an engineer, apprentice, and around then, and I think there was during the time, and I probably shouldn't say this because the old boss would probably kill me, but around the time there'd be the idea of, can you do this job for us? Your customers would ask you to do that, and I'd be like, okay, I could do you. At the age of like 20, we'd come.
So when you say that, you're there to do, for argument's sake, do a bit of wiring, and they've gone, while you're here, could you do this?
I remember being a bit like, should I do it? And then there was a couple of engineers at the company I was at the time, and they said, no, you go and do that. A little thing here and there, and that was it. So I ended up doing that, and then I just ended up getting some ambition. I mean, to sort of like, well, I'm going to have my own business one day. And that was just my drive from the early 20s of doing that.
Is that you looking at as your, working out apprentice through to engineering, you're looking at this kind of going, I'm not really, there's more I want to do, personal satisfaction, all that stuff. I'm not.
I think there's definitely a personal satisfaction involved, because I don't think I'd do it if it wasn't. We're trying to make a difference. I think that's one of the biggest things we live as a business, and the way I'm trying to design that. But I mean, if I look back on sort of what I wanted when I was younger was, I wanted to build a business, but I suppose just touching back on the bit about the sales bit, we started at a very, very good telecoms company. And it was an excellent telecoms company. At the age of 18, I come straight from college. And it was all driven by lease driven. So back then, the PBX game, and I mean, anyone will relate to watching this, they'll be like, the amount of money these salesmen used to make, let's wrap it all in and let's charge them this much a month over 18 years. So you're in that
position where there's been a big phone system on a 40-year contract with commits and all these crazy things.
Yeah.
And they're high-fiving the Jaguars, and then it drops down to you, and it's
the dregs.
Right, you need to go and install this.
Yeah,
and you might make a little bit extra if you're helping out doing things, but you're seeing this booming.
Exactly, and I think that's probably what really set me up for the where we are now, because we were a great engineering team. This company grew massively. I'll mention it. His name is Matt Bedward, Global Telecoms. We learned a lot, and I'm sure if he does watch this, he'd see that. And we created a really good network of engineers, and believe it or not, 3 of them people work for me now that we was in my early years at 20. The bit around that was there was a sales team. I have
to touch on that because I think it's interesting. You've got people that probably trained you now work for you.
Yeah.
And the dynamics on that is always quite interesting.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, we'll come to. I'll come to that.
Yeah.
I mean, I suppose the key thing around just answering the question around, what is the drive, and I suppose for me was I worked in this business and the company went bump. It actually was the stage of VoIP. So we were one of the biggest NEC installers, which again I didn't realize at the time what that was doing to my career. We was doing 5 phone installs in a week, so 1 every day. Going to a car garage, fitting this phone system, we're getting that quick at doing these things. And then we was putting VoIP on them, and if you think about that, I mean, I'm 38 now, 18 years ago. So we was doing that, and it was, companies didn't even know what VoIP was. And, back then we used Gamma and some other stuff. And I think it all sort of got a bit, it wasn't fully there, VoIP at the time, but they were being sold as packages with 3 minutes of these deals, and there was getting loads of them out there. The company was going like that. And sadly, it didn't sort of work out for the company. It sort of had to be liquidated, and that's what happened. But from that point, then it was almost like a bit of a scary moment for me. It was a bit like, wow, well, what's next? But what happened was actually a recruitment company rung me up and was like, we've got this company that are really interested. And it turned out, I ended up going working for a company called Micro Exertis, which they sort of like were looking for starting a telecoms division. I did no idea what this sort of this career path was going to start for me, because there's me, this just a simple engineer, realistically good at what we did. We took pride in everything we did, and it turned out that someone had mentioned that global telecom had gone into administration. There's loads of engineers there. You probably want to look at that pool of engineers because they've done that much NEC, and that we were a bit of a target. So I ended up going for these interviews at the age of 23. And it turned out I was like one of the first or second person into a telecoms division that grew to about 30, 40 people maybe as a sales, might be in terms of in a big organisation.
Is that going in as keeping your engineer discipline, or were you going in because it's brand new?
Yeah.
You're doing, is that where you're starting to start the top of the funnel, so to speak?
Yeah.
Customers and...
Well, it's funny you asked that, because I didn't really know what I was getting into. And the idea was to give tech support to the channel. I mean, during the channel we're talking about now, and it was giving tech support on NEC equipment to other companies I'd worked for. So I was like, wow, I'm 23. Am I able to do that? And, I ended up having 5 interviews to get this job. And they sent me down to NEC to have an interview with NEC. They asked me loads of technical questions. And I mean, I just went, yeah, it's that program 1040. Yeah, program this and that. And I didn't realize that obviously we were doing that many of these systems in these 5 years.
This knowledge was coming.
Yeah.
You're taking it for granted almost, I suppose, because you're doing it every day.
Exactly.
And it's only when someone's asking you, you're going, bloody hell, I'm a bit further along than I thought.
The key bit that then happened then was I got the job. I mean, I was going in with a shirt and tie, and I'm thinking, well, where's my Snickers pants gone from on site pulling cables and and doing that? Now I'm in a shirt and tie. I'm on the phone doing tech support. I ended up doing road shows, driving around with big directors of people that have been in the industry for many years. Worked at some of the big distributors, and I'm like, how am I in this position?
You've gone from, I guess, day-to-day installing, suit and tie, you're driving with a director, you go into an event, you're speaking to customers, you're not that figure that's coming in the background, if you like, without being disrespectful to engineers, but they're a lot of what they do is unseen. The customer will go and do this,
massively,
and there's not that appreciation sometimes.
Yeah, there was, and I think there's a bit of a stigma behind that, because with engineers, I mean, you can get, I suppose in my frame of mind, I'd like to think I was a good engineer. I am a good engineer, but I had a social side to myself, and in the other world, in the tech world, some people aren't as sociable, but they're amazing in sort of fixing stuff or, divulging out something as engineering. And I think that's probably one of the main things that sort of helped me in the early days of the career, was a very sociable company we were at. And, there's a good network of people. And I realized that, early days of life, I think from working in pubs when I was younger, I had 4 jobs. It was, social. And I think added to that.
Just briefly touch on that growing up. So we had Crystal Gale the other day, and she said, and she's kind of progressed her career in terms of leadership and directorship. And she said when she was kind of growing up, I think from the age of like 13, she always had jobs and things like that. And it's interesting you say, in those formative years, 4 jobs, and that's kind of that work ethic.
Base, definitely.
It's not a coincidence. I think everyone, the high achievers we're talking to, when they were a teenager, they're working multiple jobs. The
3 paper rounds.
Yeah.
I worked at the chip shop, putting potatoes into these bins that were like, I mean, honest to God, I think I get paid £9 to do it a week, and it was like, but then I'd have a paper round that got £12, and it'd all cash up. And I mean, the funny thing is, we were talking about the other day with one of my close friends who I used to do the paper round with, and what we used to do is he used to have the paper on the other side of like the town, and I'd have mine, and we used to pool in at Christmas, but we had this thing about going around and dropping them off for Christmas tips. We pool them together, and I mean, is that entrepreneurship? I don't know. Or is that begging? I don't know what you call it, but
I think it's good.
I suppose that's what sort of like the ethos of, you know. The funny thing is that I carried on working at the pub. I started as a pot collector. My sister worked there, and then it went from there. And I carried on working at that pub whilst I was an apprentice. I'd even passed out, and I carried on working there on a Friday night and a Sunday afternoon, just because I enjoyed it so much, you know. And it was just, you know, like the social aspect of it. So even up to about 21, 22, I was still working at the pub, even though I was 3 years into apprentice. Well, I passed out, you know.
Now you're the other side.
Yeah, exactly, definitely. Yeah, too much so. But yeah, no, yeah, and I think.
So you were doing that. So kind of, it was just interesting because honestly, there's not a coincidence when these sort of things, 4 jobs, that entrepreneurship, realizing that hard work is needed. Yeah. Obviously now you're in an awkward, it's not awkward position for you, but now you've put yourself in an initially awkward position where you're actually going out, you know, pushing product, talking to people, the NEC, going to interview there. And is that at that point when you were adding that skill set, I suppose, from a better description, that
definitely
going back to being paid a bit extra to do certain things, you're thinking, this is something I want to build into my business?
The word I've used over the years when I moved to the Exertis role was, you know, I call myself a duck out of water. It was bizarre. Like I was doing, I had PowerPoint out for the first time. We had to do a PowerPoint show to like, you know, 50 potential resellers that they were trying to get to buy off them, even though you could buy off all the other big names like, you know, Nyman's and all the other ones that were selling these products. Exertis wanted to set this division up. And there's me going on this road show, and
you're
I'm
the credibility. Head. So a lot of our partners will, and you as well, with your business now, will be on the other side of the fence where you're looking at different vendors, different technologies, and there's a Ben Ganley character there stood in front of them saying, our product does X, Y, Z. And it's tough because you're talking to business owners. Yeah. It's not, you're not talking to, you know, rank
23 at this point as well. And I'm like, and you just look like this young sort, and I'm around other real senior people in this, you know, that have been in this industry for years. They've been headhunted into the department as part of this plan to grow and it was, I mean, I suppose that in itself, I mean, there's some real key people that I met along the way that came in from various other places, you know, that I learned a hell of a lot off, you know, in
expanding
that area.
Your network, isn't it, as well, that you can then draw on as you've carried on.
That's it, yeah. And then, so we sort of grew the tech team, and then, funnily enough, Andrew Roberts, who we were apprentices together, he came and joined us on the tech team, on the tech desk, and we sort of had enjoyed our years, me and him, for getting some, you know, glowing reviews off people and this, that, and the other of, you know, the tech support at Exertis, it's the best. And, you know, we used to hear stuff like that. I mean, whether or not other people would say different, but I'm pretty sure we used to take pride in it. And I mean, Andy joined, and me and him, we used to sort of shadow each other in the younger days. And then we started to do the tech support. I was like, you've got to move here. And he was like, no, I'm all right where I am. And eventually he did. And then, I mean, I think basically what then happened after that was I kept getting a knock on the door for a company called Node 4, which was a company I'd followed for a bit and was really impressed with. And Richard Buxton in particular was, sort of like saying, will you come and work for us? And I think the problem
building that brand of yourself individually, as well as you progressing your skill set within the industry, people are knowing about you, which is so important for anyone. In terms of how you interact with people, building that perception of you. Because it opens doors, doesn't it? As you progress, massively. You know, you've gone from needing 5 interviews to doing a really good job and getting headhunted, where I'm assuming you didn't have to do 5 interviews.
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, that was it. I think if there was anything, I think the Exertis, well, it's called Exertis now, and then it was Micro P at the time, but that sort of exposure, and I mean, just the exposure to the product. So we we were exposed to directly with NEC in terms of the channel. So it was like we had all the training we needed, we had all the accreditation. I think there was some training course we were like the first to do it, you know, and you literally were every day, day in out, and you had engineers ringing you up. So you didn't have end users ringing you up saying, oh, my phone's not working. It was engineers saying, I've been trying to get this working. They've already done everything you can. And you'd be like, no, you need to program 80 for this. And
do you have to, as a highly qualified engineer, is there a skill set to adapting between talking to another engineer, and then talking to a Will Goodall who rings you up, both the same problem? I'm assuming engineer, in terms of, like, I noticed this when we go to the hospital with my little one who's probably jumped off something, my wife who's a nurse will go, duh. So they understand it straight away.
Some analogies
Whereas I'm kind of going, well, there's a little bit of this and this is, and they're kind of having to guess, and the questioning they've got to do with someone like me is a different level. What's the sort of skill set dealing with a Will, as opposed to, I'm assuming all day you want to deal with engineers because you can talk technically to each other and diagnose the problem. Whereas if you're dealing with me on the phone, for example, how did you adapt that? How did you get the patience?
I think the funny thing is that was obviously sharpened in the first years of my career, I think. So, you know, when you, because
I'm blaming you. Well, I've probably done something wrong, but it's your fault. Exactly. It's your fault. Yeah.
Well, that's exactly it. And I think the key bit is in like we're sort of teaching a lot of our apprentices on the support desk now, and you know, and we do this sort of daily is the stuff like, it's, you know, you don't really need to know, you know, when you're speaking to the end user who's got that problem, you just need to let them know you're going to fix that problem, you know. And it's like, you know, you can sort of say, well, they've not done that right. Well, it's just guide them to do that right, you know. And I think the key bit around anything is it's almost as a bit like, you know, if your grandma comes to you or something and says, how do I work this phone? You know, you're going to do it in a certain different tone and a different way of telling someone, aren't you? I think, and I suppose that just comes with a social aspect of working with different clientele.
Can that be trained in an engineer?
Definitely, 100%. It's something we're heavily trying to work on our support desk at the minute. And again, I think going back to my personal self in terms of seeing that, you know, when you're working for the end user as a reseller, installing all the time, you know, oh, my phone's out working, this, that, and the other, you've got to work dynamically to try and fix it out. And the other bit about being an engineer was you was the face of it. So you was on site, you were, you know, we used to have some interesting stuff where they were like, the salesman said this or salesman said that. You'd have to work that out with them and, you know, be the friend and be that. And I suppose that come as that part came. Moving on to sort of like then you're dealing with engineers, then it's like, well, how's this not working? Different dynamic again, because it's like generally it'll be something's not working. Well, it's a firmware update. I found the bug. All right, brilliant. I'll get that raised for you. And it's like, how quickly can you get that fixed for them? Because their customer is a 200 user phone system and they're going to lose a lot of money, this engineer, this company, if I don't go and find out the bug fix from any, you know. So there's a whole different aspect. But I mean, just talking about myself personally, and I think that's one thing that I think has helped build a picture of what is needed for sort of a company to be able to do both.
Transfer the two, yeah.
But yeah, no, definitely, we've got a big thing on it at the minute. I've just brought, well, Andy Roberts, who came to the Exeter, he just started 3 days ago in the business. Again, we was apprentices together. I brought him in.
How does that dynamic work? Because when kind of looping back to when we talked to Adam, he had two business partners that he started a business with, and for him, you know, I got the impression, and I would be the same. It's so important when you're running a business to have a core of people that you trust. So when you're recruiting for LIV, I mean, so we'll get onto the starting LIV, but it's just interesting. You mentioned obviously hiring people that you worked with in the past. How does that dynamic work? Where it was you've gone from Ben, my colleague, mate, to ultimately, and I know you don't act this way, but ultimately Ben, the boss, responsible for not just, you're thinking a bit of a bigger picture in terms of how the business is. Yeah. How does that dynamic work with people? Is it difficult?
It is, yeah. You know what? It is. And I think, I mean, more so the last sort of three years, I mean, well, funnily enough, what was it? The early years in terms of like when we first started, Warren, who was my manager, he came and worked for us for 3 days. he was my manager at the first place I was at, and he came to help me out. And I mean, to be honest, he was interested in his garden, and he was ready to sort of like early retirement thing. So I managed to sharpen that area a little bit there because we were friends. We go fishing every year, we do stuff like that, and it was like, I think that sort of sharpened there. But I think what's happened in the later, like the business has grown now, especially the last 3 years. There is a different, I've got to be different. I've got to take the sort of not make bit out of it. It's still important because I think then you've got that trust, you've got that, but you've got to realize that they've got to understand what we're trying to do and what we're trying to achieve as a business, and you've got to be invested in that. So if you're not, then it's regardless if you're friends or not. And that sounds a bit harsh because I've got a couple of people that are in this business that are friends, but I think we were under the strong illusion of when we come to this a business, so we're going to make this happen. We're trying to make a difference. It's not my business. I don't look at this and say, oh, well, all right, I started it, but I don't say to like the likes of these Andy and Steve in particular, let's say they've come in, I don't tell them like, you've got to do this my way. We're doing it together. This is a collective. I'm going to guide what I expect. I've got this path, and I think that's the biggest message that I've been able to be dynamic about in terms of everyone that's in the business. And I mean, there's the likes of Mike Quinn, who's our technical manager as well. He was, I met him at the Woodthorpe pub for an interview, and I had nothing but a garage and a van to offer him. And it was like, are you going to come and work for us? And he's been with us 6 years now. So 7 years. So
it's a two-way thing, isn't it? I think sometimes when my perception is when you grow in that business, as much as you're taking a punt on someone, maybe because it's your first couple of hires, I imagine going from, I've got to pay this person, there's national insurance, pension, and we won't talk about the budget, but there's all these costs, and then you bring them in. And the bit I always find interesting with entrepreneurs like yourself is it's your business. So for you, if you need to work till 3 a.m, then you'll do it because you're building that business. Whereas sometimes it's difficult. You're hiring someone 9 to 5, 9 to 6. They've got a different, or some people have a different approach. Yeah. And sometimes it can be quite difficult for the business owner to go, why aren't you doing that? It's my business. Like, why aren't you on a Sunday coming in and do, and how you manage that with your people? I mean, what sort of lessons did you learn during those kind of early hiring people and growing that culture that you've got now?
Yeah, I think there was a big lesson. I think in particular, we believe in, I suppose, comes back to the nature of my career, and more so everybody in the business is an engineer, apart from Donna. So everybody has done engineering, and they've all been a telecoms engineer. And that's one of the biggest things that we try and...
I don't know any other business that has that. Normally, and when I say normally, I'm not saying this is the right way, but normally you have engineering here, account managers here, and a new business development person, and it's very segmented. Yeah. Whereas you're all engineers as well as doing maybe, frontline or install it or whatever. That customer account management is still an engineer. Yeah. Is that driven through your background in?
It is, yeah.
You just want...
And it sort of comes back to that sort of message of early hires, really. I think, we're learning their mistakes. And I think we've realised that we've all had the same career. And they, when someone joins the business, I've done the same. I've run them cables. It's like, well, what do you mean you can't run that cable now at 5 o'clock? I'll do it. Come on. And it almost makes them feel, well, my boss has done it. I'm going to do it. And it sort of gives, it sort of really gives, like, we have this big thing. When we've got the apprentices coming through now, we've got interviews this afternoon for 2 more, and we've got the LIV Academy. And you're not a telecoms engineer, you're a LIV engineer. And it's like, what do you mean? No. When you join the business, you become a LIV engineer, and that's generally because of our diversity of our products. But we believe in that method.
The apprenticeship bit. So we've got in Elevate, we have the marketing apprentice, and it's our kind of the first exposure I've seen to it, and I just so much admiration for the position because I went to university, got a load of debt, slight alcohol problem, and then went into work. Whereas the apprentice, when I talk to us, they're working, they're earning cash, they're learning the role,
Yeah.
and then they're also getting qualifications at the end of it, and no significant debt and things like that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting how you guys have zeroed in on that, and ultimately, I suppose you get someone at the end of it who is really bought into kind of what you're talking about before, the culture, how you guys operate, where the mission is, and they've got the qualifications. They're an engineer, a LIV engineer.
Yeah.
How long have you been doing the apprenticeship side of things in the academy?
We took our first apprenticeship on year 3, was it? So what, 5 years now? So yeah, and then we've sort of announced the LIV Academy in terms of, you know, how that works. Obviously, we use some trusted apprenticeship schemes now. The funny thing about apprenticeships with telecoms is when I was an apprentice, it wasn't even an apprenticeship. I didn't even get an NVQ or a level.
Yeah, it just been a low wage, was it?
It was just
working.
You chaperone this in particular individual, which happens to be Steve. Now works for us. Now he was one of the guys I chaperoned pretty much for a year, and now he's does service delivery for the business. And funnily enough, that's what it made me realise that if I could learn that much in a couple of years and become a good engineer, well, we can do that with everyone else. You know, if someone's willing, if someone's got, you know, wants to get out of bed and wants a bit of hard work as well, you know, because there's nothing easy about this job at times. You know, if something's broke, you could be like right under the cosh, or, you know, if you take something down, or if you've got a big job to finish, you've got to get these cables in or whatever, you know, it's fun. It's challenging as well, because if you do it, it's rewarded. It's, you know, it rewards the business. And we believe that, you know, there's a real place to home in on with that, with young generation of doing that. And I think that's, again, sort of gives us the ethos of why we're different to our everyone else. You know, we try and keep that culture of what we are. We're an engineering outfit. And, you know, it brings back to the first point when you first said about the sales, and I'm sure I'll go into it because I'm trying to reinvent myself at the minute, because I'm realizing I've got to become a salesman and got to become more of a businessman. And, you know, I've naturally been doing it. Why do you think
you've got to?
Because the business is growing, and it's
already growing though. Why do you need to?
I think
you go faster.
No, I suppose I'm probably using the wrong sort of what I'm trying to get across. I think.
Or are you being put into more environments where the engineering part is important, but you're feeling you need to, you know, maybe tenders, presenting a project, putting commercials together, all that stuff.
Yeah. So I think that's where
bids and all that.
Yeah. I need to retain into that area, but then, you know, past couple of years, 2-3 years, I've brought in I brought a BDM in and didn't really work out. And then we brought pre-sales ex-engineer in, and that's not what we need and stuff. So I'm still trying to sharpen that area in terms of what it is we're trying to do as a business, but not lose the touch of we're an engineering business.
Yeah, it was really interesting. We had the Peter Kay event, and I remember I was chatting to you, and we were chatting to another couple of partners, and it seemed to me the feedback was, and I touched on it with Adam, is sales is there's no barrier to entry to go into sales. Anyone can start, but good sales is a lot rarer, and the potential pitfalls for a growing business to hire a BDM, a sales director, all those things.
Yeah.
You know, it seemed quite common when we were talking to other businesses. Yeah, I've had a mistake. We hired someone and it didn't quite work, and there's a load of cash outlaid on that, and it delayed our growth, and it's all these considerations, I suppose, I didn't think about until I was kind of lucky enough to listen to you talk to other business owners, because it was all quite similar. It wasn't a LIV problem. It seemed to be a wider
broad spectrum. Yeah. And I think with that though, I mean, any advice I give to anyone at that area is you've got to do it, because you've got to make the mistake. You've got to see it for yourself. You've got to see a bad BDM lie through his back teeth at you, telling you it's coming in. I've got this one, and drag it out another month. And then when you realise that you've took it for too long for, you know, and I mean, I think that's, you know, the biggest thing that, you know, listen to a lot of podcasts about businesses and things like that. And, you know, and these mistakes are what make the business, and that is what makes you move on to the next thing.
Like Johnny Ray said when we did this thing, he said, well, what advice would you give your younger self? He said, make mistakes. Keep making mistakes.
Make them quickly.
Learn.
Yeah.
But make mistakes.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to make those mistakes.
Yeah. I mean, I remember like the few years, the first BDM I brought in, and I realised it was like I sort of took the money off. It was about 3 years ago, and took the money off the eye of the whole like concept of what I should have been doing in terms of looking at targets and looking at what's come in this month and what have we done. And I've never really had to do that. And it was a massive wake-up call 3 years ago, because it was like, right, okay, hang on a minute, where's all that money gone? What's this got? Right, okay, let's start again. And in the end, I spent a year back in the hot seat, literally driving up business, doing this, doing that. And then, we managed to get where we're back again. And now the next 18 months, it's now starting to think, well, how can I get a couple of people that are going to help drive some business? And that's the plan.
Will they be engineers?
This is it. Because the key thing is what I like to do is I like to listen to our current customers, and a lot of them have, particularly some really trusted ones, some fairly big clients have sort of said to us that, Ben, realise I don't really want to be phoned by that person individually, because when they ask, I ask them a technical question, I'll have to come back to you on that. You guys pick up the phone. Oh, right. Yeah, no, we've got a solution for that. Yeah, I'll send you, that's how you guys work. So it's like, I've got to try and find that happy medium, but we've got a plan in place going forward. That's, we're going to sort of look at how we do that.
It's interesting, because I think the sales bit, the engineering bit, how you put the two together, because historically it would be exactly the position you had when you first started going out, where you have, you have a Will Goodall, Jazz Hands, and then you've got Ben Ganley there, who's the expert, and I do the shaking of hands, and then there's a technical question, and I go and speak to Ben. Speak to Ben. Whereas you're really evolving it to, I can answer that, but then I can also talk to you and sell, and I suppose that's the next journey of, you've trained the engineers to be able to talk to me and talk to you. Yeah. Now is there an opportunity to grow that into the sales bit? Yeah. Because it's a real USP, the engineering bit.
Do you know the funny thing as well, right, Will, is I hate the word sales. I hate the word using I've got a salesman. It's like makes me cringe. It's like,
why?
Because I actually personally think when I speak to people, or I'll be speaking to customers, and generally I'm not trying to pitch that to you. I'm always like, sort of like, I don't, I'm just going to tell you that if we do that way, it's going to make it better because that, and be like, right, okay, well, let's do it. I prefer sort of showing it as, well, I'm going to fix that because it's going to benefit you for this. That is a sale, don't get me wrong, but it's more of a technical sale. It's more of a solution sell. It's more of a, you've got a problem, but that's the first thing when you go and look at sales coaching now and everything else. The first thing that people say is find the problem, tell them how you're going to fix it, and then you've got a sale. But that's obviously how I've sort of done business along the way. Now, would I call myself a salesman? No, I wouldn't. We work with partners. We do an excellent job. We expect repeat business. That's generally how we've worked. I'm at this very, very fine stage at the minute of the business where it's like, I know to get us to a certain level now, where we want to be in a year's time, 2 years' time, the business needs to grow. I want a bigger team to support our client base. That has to come with revenue. But how do you drive that revenue? And there's only one of me. I'm looking at marketing now. I have to look at accounts. I have to, dip it. And it's like, I know that there isn't physically time in the day to keep doing that. So I've got to find that happy medium. And I don't want to use the word sales. So it's like, we've got an idea what we're going to sort of work in, but I think it's like another pre-sales engineer in terms of how it works. That customer, Will, you ring us up, you want to go, Ben, I've got this building here. What do we do? Right, I'll come have a look at it. I'll put something together. I'll give you some ideas. And that's how we work. Right, okay, yes. So you're having a conference room there. Right, brilliant. All right, so you're going to need infrastructure, Wi-Fi. Right, we'll do a heat map survey on the Wi-Fi. There's old bricks here. You've got some corrugated. Yeah, we probably want best to do a survey on this building. We come and...
Do you think it's a credibility thing?
But you wouldn't get that with a salesman. Do you know what I mean? Or you would with a... I suppose I'm knocking it actually because I'm saying you would with someone that would really...
I get what you're saying. And I think...
Probably, yeah.
I get what you're saying, 100%.
Probably there's a lot of people going to scream at this and go,
I think a lot of people will disagree. But I think there'll be equally a lot of people that will agree, particularly businesses growing from a technical and engineering position. And I think it's a good debate. It's definitely a Moretti debate, but I think you've got, ultimately you're an engineer first. So if you're going in and saying,
yeah,
the solution you've got now, Mr. Customer, doesn't work because of I'm a engineer, here's my qualifications,
yeah,
versus me going in and saying exactly the same thing but with business development manager,
yeah,
you're going to get believed 99 times out of 100, and rightly so. So I understand the value of that engineering bit, and it's just how you're going to add the sales bit to it. It's that sometimes, and now this might be wrong, an engineer may go, and this is where the conflict for you may come in as a business owner needing more revenue and growing. I'm not saying you would ever sell the wrong thing, but there'll be things where a customer might want a really fantastic solution, and the engineer side goes, well, you don't need that. You can get away with this and it's half the price. Whereas you as a business owner might go, well, this is exactly what the customer wants. It ticks all the boxes. They can afford it.
Yeah.
That's the one we should do.
Yeah.
And maybe a salesperson, I might be wrong, people might disagree with this, salesperson might go, yeah, we'll push the higher one. Whereas an engineer might say, ridiculous. You don't need a 10 gig lease line. You can get by on broadband. You don't need that super firewall. You can have this. You don't
That's
need
what
this.
we do. We talk ourselves out of a sale. The amount of times I've done that over the years, and we do that, yeah. And I think,
and that's the bit that's interesting. I think, and obviously, sometimes the path of righteousness is in your favor because the customer might go, "Jay White gave me great advice, save me money. I've opened a new business or a new building. I'm just going to use LIV. I'm not even going to go out to market." And then it kind of comes back. But then there might be other bits where
there's not that growth strategy.
Food on the table, so to speak, that's left. So that's it. That's
I think that's probably a common theme of how LIV has grown. And I think if you've got an 8 or 9 years business in this industry, I mean, there's probably other competitors out there that are turning over way more than what we are, and the sales revenue, because they're probably run by a salesperson, ex-salesperson. There's a few I could probably name, but we're not like that. We haven't been like that. It's been steady growth. Like we the first few years it was really high growth, and then now we're just on a real nice steady trajectory. So it's like, I mean, I'm not in any rush to go anywhere. That's not,
I was going to say about the way the market is. I would imagine it's not uncommon for you to get a phone call or an email from someone wanting to talk about acquiring your business and all those things.
Yeah, there's a few. Yeah. But there's no intentions of that. I think, like I say, just going back to this slow grind of, we've got clients that have been with us in 7 years, 6 years, and they just pick up the phone. I mean, they message you. Sometimes I think I should go and reach out to them, and we do. We try and but I think that's probably what I prefer, to make sure we keep retaining in that way.
It's building your business on solid ground, isn't it? It's not.
Yeah.
There's a business I know in Southampton that is going through astronomical growth, but they're recruiting telemarketers, inside sales, jazzy. I'm going to show my age here, TikTok videos. That's their sort of ethos and brand, and there's nothing wrong with that, but yours is a lot more rock solid engineering background, buying into the culture, apprentices coming into the business, and you yourself changing that skill set from an engineer doing this. Now you've got wages, revenue, family life, all these different bits. How do you deal with, how does a business owner start dealing with those to start with when you're starting to grow, you're moving premises, you're Johnson's on the block, so to speak, in terms of people's welfare depends on you, doesn't it, ultimately, as the leader?
It does. It's funny because that is probably the biggest one that keeps you, as any business owner, and they'd be lying if they don't say this, that keeps you up at night. You lose, potentially a sale doesn't go your way, or a project that you've quoted on doesn't go your way, and I was counting on that coming in, and that sort of ruins your morale, ruins your demeanor, which the next day you still got to go into that office and be, "Hi, morning everyone, how are we all?" Everything else, you have to keep that blank face. But the biggest thing for me is, I've learned over the years, because there's been some tough times, there's something real rock bottom's hit, and you think, wow, that's got, or whatever. it'll good comes around, keep working hard, you know, you just keep going at it, keep doing the same things, repeat. And it's like, you know, you go in with that morale, you keep morale up, you keep that team going, you keep everyone happy, you know, and that then works.
If you
success,
go down,
it's like
the business goes
down. Exactly. Yeah.
Because everyone's looking to you.
The funny thing is as well, I think I was trying to toy some questions you might have asked me today, Will, and I was sort of like coming this morning, I thought, how do you keep yourself motivated and all that? And I sort of thought, so it was kind of like tying into this question, because I thought, well, one of the key things that I've introduced into my life, because it's got a lot busier, you know, I've just had another baby as well. And then we've got basically running. So I've just done a 10K this morning. You know, I've did a half marathon last year, only started properly running, 15 months or something like that. But there is nothing I can ever describe to you the feeling when you've finished and you go straight into the office after a run, and it's literally like bang, and it doesn't matter what happened the day before. Whatever happened the day before, you leave that, you shut down, you go home to your family, you speak to, you know, you have your tea, you switch off, and then you go out and have a run, and then you come straight into the day, and then you think, right, I'm going to tackle that. And it literally, for me, it's almost like transformed the way of, I suppose it's like cloak and dagger. You, as a business owner, you've got to keep this front on, but as long as you're feeling good in yourself, you know, and you've got home life's good, health's good, you know, everything else just falls into place. Business is business. And that's
it's tough. It's interesting. The additional things outside of work to support in work is important. And massive, then as a leader, I think it's really interesting where you are the figurehead. If you came into work and went, oh, bloody hell, this has gone wrong, they're looking at you thinking, this is, you know, and I'm not saying you if you're unhappy, sometimes I'm sure you'll show people you're unhappy, but we're all human. But as a leader, you are that figurehead, and people need to buy into that and follow you, don't they?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and don't get me wrong, you know, sometimes I don't deal with things the best, but you literally know, you know, sometimes I can have a moment where that's not gone right. You know, I've not dealt with that very well. Then you go back and make amends, you know, as long as you know when you've made wrong. It's
that awareness, self-awareness is the thing, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it. I think the other aspects is you end up finding yourself into bad habits, get bad habits out of you, you know, quickly. And I think it's, I think that my biggest advice to anyone is, if they're trying to grow a business, is, you know, work on yourself more than anything. You know, forget that you are building a business, but if you build yourself and focus on yourself, I mean, for anybody with a career, to be honest, with a high profile career, the more you focus on yourself and doing the right things, keep the bad habits out. You know, everyone has bad habits, you know. Do you know what I mean? It's
apart from me, yeah.
Well, that's it. Yeah, I'm the same.
Apart from me,
but it's
where's your big direct question now? Where's your ego? So you started a business 9 years ago. You've had 2 office moves. You've got an apprenticeship, and I've never seen. You know, I was introduced via Andy Tatlock, our CRO, who I know you know from kind of growing up and stuff. And there isn't an ego. And I'm not saying that's a good or a bad thing. But why aren't you more, I've done this, my business revenue's this, I've grown this, I've done this, I'm going to grow it to this. I am, you know, we're going to acquire other businesses, I'm going to take over the world and all that stuff. Do
you know what? It's funny because that is somebody's, I know I've got like few people in the business now, in particular Steve and Andy, you know, and we was apprenticed together, me and Andy, and then he's joined and he's like, you know what, it's so impressive what you've done. And I think I'm just getting started. I think, and I don't know where that ego is.
That's what I mean.
For me, I don't even think I'm like, no, this is the next chapter now. Andy, you've just joined. Steve's like, you're here to help now. This is us now. We're so for me, it's all right. Liv started something. It is something I created. And there's a lot of ethos that I've kept in there, but it's the people in it more than anything. And I think if I turn around and told you, well, I've done this and I've done that, it just wouldn't work. It's not going to work. And I say it to even the apprentices. So you've got like the apprentices that sort of pass. We just had Lewis pass out, and you know he's come up, and it's like, you're now part of the family now. You are part of the team. You know, don't let us down. Do this, do that. You know, and trust me, it'll return in your favour. And I don't think you can get that with an ego. And I don't know have I got an ego elsewhere? I suppose at times you think, yeah, I run a business. It's great to say that to somebody. You know, it's great to walk into a room and feel like, yeah, you've run a business. But I don't ever let that take over, because I think, you know, when you're at home, you're a dad, you're a family, you know, all that stuff. It's just, you know, just think
you
it's
got
just
levelers, haven't you? You come in, you got to change a nappy, you got to do this.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
I think the other aspect of it is just work. You know, at the end of the day, it's like coming back to the free paper rounds that I used to work with my granddad on the windows. I used to do just work. And it was like, well, I want a better life, you know, and I suppose I want everyone else in the business to have a better life. You know, the more we get busier, I want, you know, they take responsibility. The more they help this whole business and this whole culture build, they get a better life. And it's not just about me taking all the rewards out of this, you know, that's the idea, I suppose. I suppose it's just the journey of career thing.
No, I think it's kind of when I said at the start, when we do these things and people watch it, and I speak to, I'm fortunate in this position to speak to business owners, 9 times out of 10, business owner like yourself will go, I'm just doing, it's the culture, it's the, 9 times out of 10 with a growing business, it's my people first, the culture, doing the right thing by our customers. And then when I ask these questions and they look at it and they go, you know what, I've done all right, but you're that busy in going forward. You've never sat and gone, I've done this, and then, you know, because it's that, you know, because you're over there thinking about the growth and things like that. So it's always, I bet there's a lot of businesses watching this that'll be thinking, you know what, that's true. I wish I need to bloody sit down sometimes and go, you do, I've done all right at this.
You know what, it is. And I mean, it's just, you've just given me a moment here when you just said that to me. You think, well, yeah, you know, fair enough. But again, I just think, you know, I compare to other businesses, you know, you compare yourself to your biggest competitor, don't you? You think, well, I want to be like them. And you're thinking, well, why am I not like? So you constantly don't feel like you ever really achieved what you should be achieving, because you're constantly going for that next thing. Not
a bad way though, is it?
It's not a bad way.
I would imagine if you felt that you had nowhere else to go, that's probably when you might.
I think there's a danger with that at times though, because and I've realised I've had to rein myself in at times, because there's a danger of saying yes and doing things and going out and doing that, and sometimes you can damage what you've already created. So there's a certain little bit of understanding that as the business got busier, I've had to start to learn.
Not stretching, sacrificing your core service to service loads of customers, and the quality maybe drops down, so you have to kind of marry the two.
And it does happen, and you got to bring that needle back to the quality, to, you know, and it, but you know, it's just part.
What's next for LIV then?
What's next for LIV? So we recently just had a fantastic year last year, and we have just signed a very huge telecoms project for us, Unified Communications, which is you'd call it our bread and butter.
Who won that deal then? Because you don't have any salespeople.
Yes, well, it's funny because we went down to sit down for the kickoff meeting this week, and it was quite a monumental moment for me in terms of, funnily enough, the actual client was originally recommended to us from NEC, because NEC recommended that they'd contacted them. 3 tenders later, 3 years later, we managed to eventually sort of win this project.
So, give an idea, sorry for jumping, but this is a massive opportunity, a massive deal for LIV. If without like figures and stuff, not interested in that in terms of that, but in terms of the benefit to LIV, are we talking you might need to hire some more people?
Yes. Yeah, that's what we're doing.
The growth on the back of this win.
Well, in particular, we've already got an infrastructure in place ready. You know, that's why I've upskilled. Andy's come in with his. I mean, the one thing I keep mentioning about Andy sort of joining the business, and then we've also got Mike Quinn, who's, you know, he's amazing with our engineers and sort of everything sort of on project. Andy comes in with his plethora of skills that for the last 8 years, whilst I've been running the business, he's been still working for the channel and building his skill sets and all that sort of stuff. So we've instantly done that area for this sort of demeanor. But we've already got sort of running clients. But then we ended up sort of acquiring a couple of other sort of phone, sort of unified communications clients, which sort of came out of nowhere for us. But again, were referred to us again because of, you know, what our nature and stuff like that. So it seems that it came at the right time. You know, we've got a lot of exclusivity with some engineering work for likes of Black Sheep Coffee, which we're working with a partner, Cranbourne, down in London on that. So yeah, it's really sort of exciting. There's a lot of growth going on. We're trying to build our LIV engineers, the LIV Academy, which is a big push on that. Building the tech desk, which is what Andy's going to be doing. We know we're going to be improvements there, which is a massive one to us. You know, the biggest thing out of all that we do is the aftercare. You know, it's massive. Like, that was one thing that you hear the horror stories of people about, you know, and sometimes, you know, over the last few years, we've not got it right because we've stretched here or we've stretched there, but all that is going to literally start to improve. And I think off the back of these contracts we've just won, it's like it's time. Right, here we go. Next stage. Yeah. So that's the idea, I think.
So it's percentage wise, how excited are you? How scared are you? And I don't mean scared in terms of you're going to fail at anything, far from it, but it's going into that, you know, the growth bit, the additional bits. Are we going to be able, you know, all that sort of.
Do you know what's funny is, and someone will laugh, as I'm sure, when they watch this, I was so away from my own numbers. Like, and this is one thing that someone will tell you about any business when it gets to a certain point, is you need to know your numbers. And I've now know that now, because I've seen the bank account get to a point where you think, oh, that's not very good. And, you know, now I've realized what you need to do. So in terms of scared, as soon as you know your numbers, honestly, it transforms your mindset. You don't even really need to be understanding too much about what's going on, but as long as you know your numbers, you know what you need to be doing, your strategy, you know, marketing, massive, put a budget aside. You know, you've got everything else in terms of hiring, you know, put a budget aside.
Good accountant needed.
Block it, great accountant.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of the biggest things. We changed accountants, and now we've got sort of like an outsourced FD that we use, and oh man, how I've got this far without that, I don't know. But yeah, no, that's in terms of looking at, in terms of being scared. No, I'm not scared, but excited is definitely the word. Yeah, I think the structure that when you sort of take a step from a small business, well, we are a small business, sorry, but you know, from being a one-man band and maybe one or two others, you know, then going into that next level, you need it to be able to make yourself, and then you've got the strategy. So what's your strategy? Now, our strategy is there's been a big investment pot put aside for upskilling. So everybody's going to be doing some Wi-Fi heat map courses that we're going to be putting in. So we're going to be upskilling in Wi-Fi, which we've already got accreditations, you know, with Mike and Andy and myself, to be fair. But it's like all the engineers, we're going to really push on that, because we do a hell of a lot of Wi-Fi now in sort of some quite big venues as well. So that is the upskill. We're going to become sort of Wi-Fi experts, because we call ourselves telecoms experts, but then we're going to move into the Wi-Fi. And the other bit around that is we're finding ourselves working with a lot of Wi-Fi and telecoms, putting Wi-Fi voice, wireless voice. We've done it for many years now, and realised that is a bit of a niche of ours. We know what products to use. We know what settings to use.
That makes sense.
And we're going to push that marketing. So that is sort of our strategy for the next year, or for the definitely you'll see some stuff in the next 6 months.
Yeah, no, I think it's exciting. And the most important question you'll get asked today, obviously, is you're having a dinner, 3 guests. So I'll tell you, Andy's guests were, one was a WWE wrestler. I think he may have said Steve Jobs. I don't know. He had 2 serious ones, and a WWF wrestler or WWE. But I think that's because he was watching a Vince McMahon documentary, which is very interesting. But yeah, 3 guests.
I can't think of the third, but I did when you sort of touched on this at the start, didn't we? But James Martin, I've got a big thing about food.
He's going to cook and sit and eat,
mate. Yeah, honestly,
it's 2 for 1.
He's just got. He's a bit of a northern guy. Drinks wine in the morning. Do you know what I mean? You can't really complain about, can you? So,
not a bad way to be.
But not saying that like you drink wine in the morning, by the way. It's like he's just such a laid back sort of guy, and he looks like he'd be great at a dinner party. Freddie Flintoff, got a big thing about his story. I mean, what a story behind him. You know,
that documentary is amazing.
I mean, there's everything he's been through, but in terms of what he's done in his life, you know, there's got to be some drive behind that man, because some of the holes he's been in to then come out of them, and I mean, some of the stuff, I'm a cricket fan, so, you know, in my younger days, I'd watch that, and some of the things he did, it was like, The third one, I mean,
it's looking a good day, didn't
it? I think the third one would probably have to be Alex Ferguson. I think
Sir Alex Ferguson. Yeah. Well, he's got free time now, hasn't he? Because he's lost his ambassadorship. So you've got Alex Ferguson, Freddie Flintoff, James Martin. 45 bottles of wine and some great food. I think
it's either Alex Ferguson or I'd take Gary Neville now at the minute. I'm quite impressed with some of what Gary's doing in Manchester and stuff. I think it's impressive what he's doing, and he comes across really well. Again, just for the sort of one of the biggest things is he's come from a football career. Humble. He doesn't
come across with.
But he looked like he would crack around the table as well. Like obviously like the overlap and stuff like that.
I think that's great.
Yeah.
Well, Mr. Ben, thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate it, mate. I think there's a lot of takeouts for me. I think the unique nature of your business with the engineering part, the journey on the sales bit, your view of salespeople, perception of it, the ability to be. No, I think a lot of people will agree. I think going from being able to talk up here to down here, and then your journey in terms of you're not just an engineer now. You need to know your numbers, your winning tenders, the culture of the business, but ultimately giving back as well. So, a lot of people that live, if your journeys are separate and they go their other way, they've got qualifications and experience that is with them for the rest of their life, much as your journey, where the qualifications and experience you got have helped you on yours. So I think those sort of benefits are unique. And, I wish you the best.
Yeah, no,
appreciated you coming on.
Yeah, thanks, Will. And it's been great working with yourself. We're quite a loyal people towards our base and things like that. So I think when we first started working, it was a bit like, okay, we'll try, but what a journey it's been. So
I appreciate it. It's all about the relationships for us, and if we can play a tiny role in LIV growing, then I'm happy with what we're doing.
I mean, I won't forget them donuts for our birthday.
I'm a donut account manager. Everyone knows this. Do another trip.
Yeah, definitely. But no, I mean, this. I wish the best of this podcast. What a great name, Chewing the Channel.
I know. Some of the other ones we had to edit out, but no, it's appreciated. Thank you very much, mate.
Cheers, mate. Thank you.
Thank you very much for watching, listening. I found it fascinating with Ben. I think growing a business from your garage, moving offices twice, adding that engineer bit and giving back through apprenticeships is absolute credit to him, and particularly interested, obviously, growing up, 3 or 4 jobs, that seems to be a common factor. I'm certainly thinking about it as a parent, whether my 13-year-old should be getting a paper round if I wanted to be successful. So thank you all very much. We'll be on usual podcast forums, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, LinkedIn, those sort of areas. And also, if you're a business looking at unified comms, things like that, or even Wi-Fi, anything, I'd reach out to Ben, even if it's just for advice. It'd be a great port of contact for anyone. Cheers, guys.